Coming up on Broncos A to Z. With the losses piling up, we'll discuss some of the most glaring issues on display as Denver dropped their 8th game of the season Sunday in Charlotte.
Then, Super Bowl 50 champion Ryan Harris will be in studio to break down a few key plays from the Broncos' Week 12 game against the Panthers and point out some of the ways the Broncos can improve with 6 games remaining on the schedule.
Broncos A to Z starts right now. Hey Broncos country, Alexis and Zach Stevens here with your Week 13 edition of Broncos A to Z. Zach, this season has not unfolded the way any of us expected it would. And just as Russell Wilson said in his post-game press conference, Sunday's 23-10 loss to the Panthers was truly unacceptable. But now that you're a couple of days removed from it, what is your biggest takeaway from that game?
Well, the Broncos offense, defense, and special teams all struggled at times throughout the game. And it was maybe the most disappointing game from the defense, and the offense really couldn't get anything going until the fourth quarter. And then special teams, there were a couple of high points, including at the end of the game, recovering an onside kick, but there were also issues there.
Well, before we get into some of the nuances of that game, here's a look back at how Denver's Week 12 matchup in Carolina unfolded, as captured by Broncos Director of Production, Austin Brink.
Welcome to Charlotte, North Carolina. It has been raining like crazy earlier this morning, but right now the clouds are clearing a bit as we are here set for a matchup with the Denver Broncos on the road facing the Carolina Panthers.
All we gotta do is our job, we'll beat their ass. Broncos on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Both teams have struggled scoring points. It has been a difficult year for both the Broncos and the Panthers. This will only be the 7th meeting between the Broncos and the Panthers. Denver winning 5 of the first 6 matchups.
On a beautiful day. After all that rain we got overnight, now we've got some of those signature Carolina blue skies up ahead. Actually a perfect day for football.
We are set for the start of a game that both teams desperately need a win. Deep drop, pressure on him immediately, and this time they've got him back at the 42-yard line. Wilson sacked by Frankie Louvu. Straight I formation as Darnold is under center. Good job by the Bronco defense there as they are stout at the point of attack. Hit by Yoma Uwazurike. 1st and 10, moving right to left at their 25-yard line. Murray's got a big hole and he's got some room. There is the longest run of the season by a Broncos running back. That is a run of 52 yards. Wilson from the gun, floats from the area of Sutton. Sutton makes a miraculous catch inside the 10.
Well, this has been a strange drive. How do they get another chance here?
14th play of the drive. Wilson in the pocket, throws a ball that is caught, and that is Brandon Johnson. Touchdown, Denver. 300th career touchdown pass for Russell Wilson. This is the 11th play coming up. Darnold again under center. Darnold play fakes, sets up, pressure by Browning, floats one to the end zone. That ball caught, touchdown Carolina. DJ Moore, Pat Surtain on the coverage. A perfect throw by Sam Darnold. Josie Jewell was the guy that ripped the ball from Sam Darnold. It was a zone read, and the ball bounced right back up to him.
It kind of looked like he recovered it and then rolled into the end zone.
And Clay Martin, the referee, has just signaled touchdown.
And that's what happened.
Broncos now drop to 3-8. Final score, 23-10, Panthers over the Broncos.
Week 2 with Clint Kubiak calling the plays for this Broncos offense, but we did not see the same success early in the game like we had the week before. So what were some of the most prominent issues that you noticed for this Broncos team on offense on Sunday?
Oh, in the first 3 quarters, they just couldn't get anything going. Alexis, they had 10 possessions in the first, second, and third quarter. 5 of them were 3 and outs. That's impossible for any offense to get rolling. And we heard Nathaniel Hackett talk about it a couple of weeks ago. It's important to just get that first down, then we get rolling. And it's kind of funny to say just to get rolling, but that's so important. And in the first half, the Broncos just could not throw the ball. With 4 minutes and 42 seconds left, Russell Wilson had 10 passing yards. As a team, because Russ was sacked a couple of times, the team had -1 passing yards. It was the passing game that really held the Broncos back in the first half.
Well, as for the run game, Latavius Murray, he got his first start at the running back position against the Panthers. So, Zach, what were your initial impressions of Latavius Murray there?
Oh my gosh, a spark. We got to see a spark from Latavius Murray.
Yes.
A 52-yard run, something we haven't been close to to seeing with the Broncos this year. Not only was it the longest run of the season, but Alexis, it was the first run of the Broncos season over 20 yards.
Yes.
And you have to think back, the Broncos did have Melvin Gordon. The Broncos did have Javonte Williams for a couple of games, and they were never able to get a 20-yard run. And Latavius Murray really sparked the offense there. The best play of the day, the biggest play of the day from the Broncos. And it was great to see. Latavius Murray is a big bruising back. So for him to turn on the Jets and get 52 was cool to see.
Well, for the Panthers, Sam Darnold, he started for the very first time this season, and defensively, it just wasn't Denver's best day. So how were the Panthers able to find success up against what I think we would all consider one of the league's best defenses?
They were able to dominate the trenches and dominate on the ground against the Broncos. They ran the ball 46 times, which is just a crazy amount. One of their running backs had 24 carries. The other had 17 carries in one game. Typically, you have a guy with 17 carries and he's your leading rusher. No, they had a 24 rusher, a 17 rusher, and they ran for almost 200 yards. Only 4 yards a clip, so the Broncos defense didn't let them get those massive plays, but they weren't able to stop them consistently, and that is just exactly what you want when you have a quarterback making his first start so that he can only pass the ball 19 times. You don't have to rely on him, and that is where the Panthers were able to get the Broncos, is just say, we're going to make Sam Darnold comfortable here, where he's only going to have to make plays occasionally because we're going to dominate the line of scrimmage.
Which is really consistent with what we had seen from the Panthers all season with Baker Mayfield as well. So not really shocked there. But speaking of the defense, a lot is being made of Mike Purcell's exchange with Russell Wilson on the sideline. What did you make of that moment?
Well, and from a national perspective, that was the moment of the game, Alexis, which is crazy. That's something just that happens on the sideline. And these are things that happen all the time on the sideline, but most of them aren't caught on camera. Most of them aren't as obvious that a teammate is clearly going over another teammate to get very fired up and lively. And then most of them don't involve another teammate getting that lively with the starting quarterback, with the franchise quarterback that Russell Wilson is. I was very caught off guard by it, because to see someone yell or raise their voice or be fiery with Russell Wilson did catch me off guard, and I thought it was very telling of just where the game was at. And Mike Purcell said it after the game, frustration. That's what it was. He was just called for a penalty, which he committed, so he was frustrated coming off. He was frustrated with the offense only having 3 points at that moment in time, and it was just frustration with being 3-8 and where the season was at. So I understand where that was, and Nathaniel Hackett talked about it on Monday and just said you like to see the passion there, but maybe not directed specifically at one person like that.
Kind of nice, though, to see these guys holding each other accountable, though,
Absolutely.
week in and week out. But as far as special teams go, they had some stellar moments in that game and some dreadful moments as well. So what were some of the learning moments you think for special teams?
I think there's a lot of them. There were some good, and Jalen Virgil did fumble on that return, but he was having a good return up until then. In those 2 seconds of when he caught it, because they did a short kick, and when he was running, I thought, maybe the Broncos found something with Jalen Virgil, but it's just you have to remind the young players that holding on to the ball is the most important thing. So that is a learning moment. And then also, you have to make all of the kicks, Alexis. But what was good was then you did see Brandon McManus and the special teams unit bounce back later in the game, recover an onside kick. They were going to have to get 1 or 2 more in order to actually make it a game. But there were some positive moments and a lot of learning moments, I think is a nice way to put it.
Yeah, what do you want to see this Broncos team really focus on throughout these final 6 games?
Russell Wilson. It starts and ends with Russell Wilson. You want to see some spark and life in the passing game, because it was as bad as it could be against the Panthers. That was probably the low moment. Let's build from there. Now the Broncos have a great opportunity for Russell Wilson to go against Patrick Mahomes twice this season for the rest of the way, and also you have Justin Herbert coming up. Let's see if Russell Wilson can elevate his game when he plays quarterbacks like that and really finish this season with momentum, because he is here for the long haul. So I want to see him get going, and that's really the most important thing for this Broncos offense and the Broncos team, is get Russell Wilson going in the right direction.
Let Russ cook. Let's go. Still ahead here on Broncos A to Z, former Broncos offensive lineman Ryan Harris will be in studio to break down a few noteworthy plays from Sunday afternoon, and then we will turn the page to Denver's Week 13 matchup in Baltimore. Don't go anywhere.
Snap to Corliss Waitman. Blackshear on a gallop, fumbles the football. The ball is free inside the 30-yard line. It looks like Denver may have this. It is the Broncos' ball at the Carolina 27-yard line. And I think that was Delaren Turner-Yell down to make the recovery. Throws an out route to the right side, and that ball is knocked away. Good job there by Pat Surtain. But a good break in the football by Pat Surtain, and it brings up a field goal opportunity for Carolina.
The offset eye with Beck as the fullback is set left. They toss it left. Murray cuts back right. Murray's got a big hole, and he's got some room. 35-40. Foot race. Here we go. Midfield 40. 35-30. The big back 25 and rolls out of bounds by himself. Clenches his fist. Points to a few Bronco fans in the stands.
Welcome back to Broncos A to Z. I'm Alexis Perry. Happy to have the Super Bowl 50 champ Ryan Harris in studio with me today as we take a look back at a couple of memorable plays from Sunday's loss to the Panthers. Now, after the Broncos waived Melvin Gordon earlier in the week, we knew that we would see a heavy dose of Latavius Murray, who got his very first start of the season. So with a little less than 5 minutes left in the first half, he broke off this 52-yard run to put the Broncos in scoring position. And Ryan, I think it is safe to say this is something that we would love to see more of.
Absolutely. More Latavius Murray, which I'm a huge fan. Also more of this offensive line blocking like this.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the key on this play. And it's not just offensive linemen, it's also the tight ends. So Miners and Fleming are going to create a great seal by blocking down. And then Eric Tomlinson, you want to know why he's on this team? It's because of this play and this block. He's able as a tight end to fight through the chaos and get squared up on his assignment. So as the ball goes, a couple of things are happening. Excellent block right here by Beck, creating that space so that Latavius Murray can come down that crease. Also the offensive line walling it off. And then Eric Tomlinson, both his numbers are showing. Coaches love that because that tells them that you're pressing north and south. So they always want to say, where are your numbers? Well, you can clearly read the 8 and the 7. So phenomenal block by Tomlinson. And then they always say, too, in run plays, we're going to leave the safety for the back. Well, that's exactly how they draw it up. And Latavius Murray gets to work, puts on a little juke move and gets down the field. Amazing effort by number 7. The same player kind of blocked by Eric Tomlinson earlier, but that was a phenomenal execution by the offensive line, tight end, and running back, all happening at the same time.
Yeah, Latavius Murray with the longest run by a Broncos running back this entire season, so hat tip to him. But unfortunately, the Broncos could not capitalize on the great field position that he put them in as Russell Wilson turned the ball over on this play. So from start to finish, Ryan, what went wrong here?
Well, first, Brian Burns is an animal, tough defensive end to block. Number 2, there's going to be an issue with the quarterback's depth. It's something that's rarely talked about, but depth plays a role here on this play. And then the right tackle just not finishing and not finding his block and the space to kind of push that beyond the line of scrimmage a little further. So the key I mentioned, you're going to get Brian Burns. That's where it starts. This guy is going to probably be a Pro Bowler, if not already, but he's on the edge right here. Now, the issue I point out to, the ball's on the 23-yard line to start. And they always tell tackles, you want to push your player about 8 yards or beyond, because that quarterback should be able to step up, find some space, and you can run them over the top. Well, as the play develops, you'll see Russell Wilson, unusual for him, takes a deeper drop. So at here where he's throwing the ball, you know, you're seeing, as I'm a tackle, you're saying, I'm doing my job. We're far from the line of scrimmage. Also, a huge amount of space to step up and just buy yourself a little bit of time. So that was the big issue. And then the other issue too, as this play develops, the ball gets hit in the air, but he's looking for Greg Dulcich over here. I think that's a catch, if not a touchdown. If not a touchdown, you're right there, first and goal situation. You also have this option, so not stepping up, dropping back a little too far, the tackle not pushing enough. And then when the ball's in the air, most of the time players think if the ball goes forward, it's an incompletion. So that's why there was a little bit of time and kind of befuddlement as players got towards that football. So those things happening together, that makes for a bad play. And another example how in the NFL, you can have one good play, but you better finish a drive. The Broncos did not do a good enough job on that on this drive and in the game.
Well, now as we fast forward to late in the game, this scoring drive for the Denver Broncos felt like it took an eternity. As 5 penalties were called, a Greg Dulcich touchdown was erased by offsetting flags, and Russell Wilson was sacked twice. But finally, Russell Wilson connected with Brandon Johnson for his first career touchdown. And Ryan, this is something that we just love to see.
And it's really fun to be on the field for a first touchdown, too. As a teammate, you hear the guy say, I need the tape, I want to write the number and the time and everything. You know, they're trying to write an annotated bibliography on that piece of tape. But it's really awesome to have your first touchdown in the NFL. So hats off to Brandon Johnson. And what I love too, Alexis, you mentioned it. This is a long drive that had some negative plays, and the determination and willingness to finish with the game out of hand, that's huge. That tells you there's a lot of fight in these Broncos left. The key is going to be, one, excellent protection by the offensive line, but these two players, Russell Wilson, Brandon Johnson, that's where this play happens. So at the snap, you're going to see Russell Wilson take his drop, and then here, he's actually going to step up into that space, creating a split second for Johnson to get open downfield. Because he's able to do that, the jump pass, the touchdown, the celebration, the relief, and that's one of the things people forget. When you score in the NFL, a lot of these young players, they look like they believe they belong in the NFL, but they don't know it until they make a big play like that. Now Brandon Johnson knows he can play in the NFL, one of the greatest feelings for all players when they get to that level.
Well, after that, the Broncos would try for an onside kick, which was successful. And while the offense wasn't able to move the ball after this, what did you like about this special teams play that at least gave the Broncos the opportunity to put a few more points up on the board?
Well, number one, it starts with Brandon McManus, a phenomenal kick. Number two, the effort of Eric Saubert. He was fantastic on this play, the reason why the fumble came out. And then number three, I'm happy for the team because you kind of don't know if those onside kicks work, but now they have film of them having a successful onside kick, builds a lot of confidence moving down the road. So as the play develops, as we mentioned, we're going to put a star by the Super Bowl 50 champion, right? Brandon McManus there. And then Eric Saubert, he's going to be right here. And what I love is when the play begins, the kick comes, and initially you have possession. If you're the Carolina Panthers, you got possession right there, and it's because of Eric Saubert fighting through and making sure that he can get his hands on the ball carrier. That's going to be the difference. That's going to be why they were able to have that success and knock the ball loose. Right here, that's the key. You're not letting this guy just catch the ball freely. He's catching it under duress. Fantastic execution by Brandon McManus and Eric Saubert.
Ryan, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Always.
Well, coming up on the other side of the break, Zach will be back in studio to look ahead to the Broncos' Week 13 matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Broncos A to Z. It is time now to shift our attention and get into our way too early game preview as the Broncos head to Baltimore to take on the Ravens, who will be hoping to bounce back from a 28-27 loss to the Jags on Sunday. And with the Bengals getting a big win last week, those two teams are now tied atop the AFC North. So Zach, the Ravens had won 4 straight games prior to their Week 12 loss, so I think it's safe to say that they're going to be pretty hungry heading into this game.
They're going to be very hungry, and they're going to want to continue to eat throughout the game because Alexis, the Ravens, for a third straight time this year, lost a game when they had a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter. So they're getting ahead of teams. I mean, they still have a good record at 7-4. They could easily only have 1 loss if they didn't blow 3 games in the fourth quarter. And so this is a game where I could see the Ravens getting a lead early and then wanting to continue to build on it to not give Russell Wilson and the Broncos any hope, because Russell Wilson still is close to the league lead in terms of fourth quarter game-winning drives. Yep. So this could be a game where if the Ravens don't close the Broncos out early, it could leave them still alive in the game, and the Ravens, I think, are really going to want to make sure that does not happen.
What can the Broncos expect facing Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense this week?
An incredible rushing attack, which is scary after what we just saw the past 3 weeks with the Broncos going into Tennessee, playing the Titans. They did a great job containing Derrick Henry. Then Josh Jacobs with the Raiders is able to get him on the ground, and then this past week, almost 200 rushing yards from the Panthers on him, and that's something that the Ravens are going to want to focus on so much throughout the game, is not just Lamar Jackson, but the other backs they have are very good at running the ball. Ravens, one of the best rushing teams in the NFL, so that is the number one priority, and it starts with containing Lamar Jackson, which is much easier said than done.
Yes, well, Trevor Lawrence, he went off against the Ravens on Sunday. 300 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and he completed over 75% of his passes. So what was he able to expose maybe about this Baltimore defense?
Well, that's a huge game, and hopefully that helps lead to a big game for Russell Wilson going against their defense, because I talked about how good the Ravens' running offense is. Their run defense is just as good. You cannot run on the Baltimore Ravens, but you can throw the ball against them, and that shows with the success Trevor Lawrence was able to have against them. You can expose them. Trevor Lawrence is not the only player that has had success through the air against them this year, so you're going to be relying even more on Russell Wilson this week, especially with Latavius Murray being a backup running back, only getting his 2nd start this week. You can expect a lot to be put on Russ's shoulders.
Well, Russ might have a little bit of help this week. As for this Broncos offense, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Mike Boone, all those guys have a chance to play this week. So what kind of spark could their return to the lineup really provide this Broncos offense?
A huge spark, especially when it comes to the wide receivers. The Broncos need help at wide receiver, specifically Russell Wilson. We saw before Jerry Jeudy got hurt, Russ was really starting to rely and trust Jerry Jeudy, and he was really becoming his number one option. And Jerry Jeudy was consistent through much of the year, which was great to see. He's going to have to be consistent because he may be Russ's favorite target when he gets back on the field.
Okay, I know you mentioned containing the run, but what else would you consider the number one key to victory for this Broncos team this week?
Well, it's simple. I've got a magic number for you, Alexis. The Broncos have to score 23 or more points,
okay,
which they've only done once this season, and it was in a loss, but every single game the Ravens have lost, their opponent has scored 23 or more points. So the Broncos are going to have to get cooking, and it's going to start with Russ.
Well, as always, we will have our full game preview right here on the Broncos YouTube channel this Friday at 5 o'clock on Broncos Weekend. For Zach Stevens and our entire Broncos broadcast crew, thank you so much for watching, and we will leave you now with some of our favorite still images of Week 12, snapped by team photographer Gabriel Christus.